Hello, everyone. My name is Jordan Hart. I am the online editor with Labels and Labeling Magazine, and today I am here with Kate for a very exciting chat about recycling. And as you can see, she has props for our coffee chat because she's already getting an A++ on this experience. So, Kate, if you would like to introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you do, and we will hop on in.
Sweet. I'm Kate Christian. I'm the corporate sustainability manager at EcoCycle. EcoCycle is one of the largest nonprofit recyclers in the US. So we've been around for 45, I think this is our 45th anniversary this year. We brought curbside recycling to Boulder, Colorado, and we have some really cool programs where I specifically consult with businesses, but we also go into schools and have an incredible Green Star Schools program. We work on policy and legislation, zero waste events, but we also run the recycling center and our hard to recycle material center here in Boulder. And we have a fleet of trucks, recycling and compost trucks. So we have our fingers in every aspect of zero waste, which is why I'm here to talk about recycling.
Yes, love it. And you recently gave a talk at TLMI where you were introduced as the Miss Frizzle of Recycling, which 10 out of 10 introduction. I was immediately intrigued, and I'm so happy to be sitting down with you today.
So I have not shared this with anybody else. So like this is a big thing for me. But to get pumped up for presentations and things like this, or I'm chatting with folks I don't know and trying to, put words together in a good string, I put on the Magic School Bus theme song in my headphones.
Absolutely.
And there's a really cool remix that has a fat beat that I really get down to. So I did that.
Love that.
Way before this one, and I kept it on for like 10 minutes. It was like getting into it. So
and now you're ready. So it's
I'm so ready. I'm so ready. One day I'm gonna dress my dog up as the chameleon or Liz from the Magic School Bus. Not today though.
I think you definitely have some Halloween costume ideas brewing.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've done it before. I'll just have to do it again. It's just like
good enough you can do it twice.
Changing up the outfit.
So my first question for you is, how did you get into recycling? Because I don't think many people wake up and go, I should dedicate my working hours and probably part of my personal life to recycling. So what was your intro here?
I found out when I was younger that you could not actually have a job as Jane Goodall and you could not be Indiana Jones. So those were two really big like gut punches for me at a young age. So like I didn't really go into it with wanting to do recycling. I just really liked being in nature and things like that. Sustainability was like I cared about it. Like I wasn't a Boulder kid. I grew up in Buffalo. So for me, like I had a different relationship with materials and stuff like that. But in my high school class, we had like a list of SAT words we had to memorize. I swear this gets to a point. I promise you. We had to write a poem or something with those words. And I wrote a poem about recycling and garbage truck drivers with those words.
Okay.
So I think it was foreshadowing.
You manifested your own destiny through this poem.
I did. But really, like, I went to a cool hippie school off the coast of Maine, College of the Atlantic. And that's where I learned about composting. So that was really cool. Everybody cared, right? We were joking around about sharing showers together and calling it like carpooling. It was like a hippie school, right? So that kind of that helped. And then I worked in retail when I got out of college and noticed all of these materials that were being recycled appropriately, even with sustainable brands. And that's how I met EcoCycle and got into that realm. That's it. Like it just kind of happened.
Yeah. Stumble into the best things.
It was, yeah. I mean, and it was, it's hard to not fall in love with recycling. I know that sounds really weird, but like when you go to a recycling center, it's like walking into a giant pinball machine, but for materials and sustainability. And it is so cool to learn about and know that it's one of the best ways to combat climate change is through proper disposal of your goods or reuse. And it's just, how do you not get excited about that? I mean, I'm sure somebody might not get excited about it, but I don't talk to those people. So.
Yeah. well, I'm with you. And when you did for your Teal presentation, you did it as like a meditative journey through a recycling center with no visuals, but like I felt like I was right there with you, kind of thing. So your passion for it is definitely contagious.
Awesome. I mean, that's it's fun to talk about. And before that presentation, I was going to do a PowerPoint and had pictures and all of that and video, but our imaginations do such a better job of actually explaining something, and you take it with you longer. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I had so much fun doing that presentation.
Well, one of the things that you talked about, you briefly mentioned, I would love to do a follow up, was you said you don't see chemical recycling as a viable option. Let's dive into that. Why is that?
So okay. So
Big
first,
questions.
I'm gonna preface this with everybody who's watching this should go to the Amber website. So it's the Alliance of Mission-Based Recyclers, and download the report that it's called "Chemical Recycling Will Not Solve Our Plastics Problem." One of the things with chemical recycling is there's two types of chemical recycling. It's plastics to plastics, and then there's plastic to fuel. So we're still reliant on plastics with chemical recycling. Right. We really need to be moving away from that. So it's kind of like absolving you of the guilt, right? The sin of using plastics. And I know that sounds a little over the top, but it's not the answer. Sure. And people are starting to look at chemical recycling as it's the prescription that's going to solve our massive plastics problem. And it's not. Recycling is not the answer either. We need to be looking more toward reuse. So, kind of like with composting. So 5% of the US population actually has access to commercial composting facilities. That's a very small number of amount of the population.
Yeah.
But when composting is introduced, you see an uptick on the amount of food waste because people start feeling like, oh, at least it's being composted. So again, there's that idea of like absolving you of the sin of waste, right? We need to transition away from that type of mentality. Chemical recycling isn't the answer, neither is like actual physical recycling that we do at EcoCycle. But together they can be helpful. I think we need to look big picture, move more toward reuse.
Yeah. I recently wrote an article about sustainability, and I went into compostable plastics, and I think there's a similar kind of perception that, oh, but it's compostable, so it's fine. When in reality, unless they have a compostable, like an industrial compostable facility, they're not home compostable, so it's not doing any good there. They can't be recycled as a traditional plastic because it will contaminate the recycling stream. Like, it's until we get the infrastructure to support these technologies, they're not doing any good for the world. It's just a confusing addition.
It's also doing worse. So for commercially compostable goods, they're actually, when they end up going to the landfill, they are creating greenhouse gases that are more potent than CO2. So, like, what problem are we solving here?
Right.
Like, take your cup with you. Take a to-go cup. You'll be fine. You don't need a compostable to-go cup. Like, just take one. Yeah. So I think sometimes we're trying to solve for the wrong problem. And I think chemical recycling is cool, right? We have the technology, but like everybody's looking at it now as a solution for our plastics problem. And it really comes down to human behavior that we need to change.
Yeah. Well said. Solving the wrong problem. I like that. So one of the wrong problems that you just brought up is something I wanted to ask about. You got your master's in sustainable food systems.
I did.
Can you talk about that? Because I've never even heard of that before.
I can totally talk about that. I can talk about that for hours. So you might have to stop me.
Okay.
It's so like food systems are complex, right? Like I was one of those people who was like reading all of the labels of like what the certifications were. And there were no answers though. Like I still felt confused. So I went and got a master's in sustainable food systems. But food systems, it's complex, right? We live in like it's a huge food chain. Your typical the food on your plate usually travels 1,500 miles to get there. That's mind blowing.
Yeah.
Absolutely mind-blowing. So the program I went through, we took a bioregional approach to food systems. So we learned about the food system in our, not like our political barriers, like Colorado. We looked at it. So for me, I'm the Southern Rocky Mountains, and learning what high elevation does to our food system. So we went from everything from growing food, what's natural, native plants here, and looking at the watershed and how things grow to, you know, humane grazing and how to manage farmers markets and things. But my slant is more on the food waste side of things, food waste and packaging, and how do we cut back on that? Because right now it's like 22% of municipal solid waste going to landfill is organic, is food waste. That's huge. A full quarter of what goes to the landfill is food waste.
And I'm taking a guess, but I'm assuming that doesn't break down in a beneficial way when in a landfill.
It does the same thing that your compostable goods going to landfill will. So it's going to create methane, which is more toxic than CO2 emissions. It won't break down, like it's not,
Yeah.
it's going to be petrified. You can do core samples of landfills, like gesturing, like there's a landfill out there.
As you can see over here.
And like over there, the landfill. But they do core samples, and you're gonna find like a banana peel next to pantyhose, next to a Time magazine from the 70s, all of it perfectly preserved and petrified because it's in an environment where it's not able to break down. So food systems took me from like I was just curious about how stuff was raised and like doing it organically to now looking at it as how do we solve a distribution problem and how do we make food valuable again? Because right now every food's cheap. It really is. Like you can go to Burger King or McDonald's and you can get 2 sandwiches for $3 or whatever. Like,
Right.
I mean, that's not great.
No.
What's that saying about the quality of your ingredients? I don't think I'm actually allowed to say that without getting in trouble from Burger King and McDonald's. So I'm not talking specifically about Burger King and McDonald's. I'm
We
talking
are
about
generalizing as a concept.
like I don't want to get sued. Um, but it is really interesting to try and put value back on food again.
Yeah.
And until we do that, we can't solve some of our big waste problems. People aren't going to value compost if they don't value food. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was tangential, but again, food systems. There's a lot to talk about there.
Well, and I feel like what you hear a lot is we have to make recycling profitable because otherwise people aren't going to do it. And I feel like conversely, we might need to make food more valuable and more expensive for people to value it and actually take care of it.
Yep, for sure. And like people, you got to think also about like our generations before us, right? Yeah, like curbside recycling didn't happen until the 70s. However, they did scrap metal drives.
Right.
Old ladies would have jars of string, things
Yeah.
like that. Like they would hold on to it. I
The
remember my
loose button
grandpa's
jars.
basement, right? Like my grandpa's basement was filled with like Folgers cans filled with different size screws and bolts and stuff. And it was just
Yeah.
like, you kept everything. So for us now, like materials, food, all of it has become so disposable and like we don't hang on to anything anymore like that. It doesn't have value. And if it does, it's for such a short period of time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and now companies are kind of designing around that with, Dove's got their forever reusable deodorant thing, and you just buy the refills and loop and all of that. So people are overcoming it, but it's a start of life and an end of life for product treatment problem.
There's also a really interesting part of all of that I think from an equity standpoint, like a lot of these reuse programs involve deposits that are fairly significant,
Right.
unless they're using plastic, which we can get right back into microplastics being a problem and all of that fun stuff. It's literally raining microplastics in Rocky Mountain National Park. So like
Ew, gross.
it's pretty horrible. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
just a coastal problem. Um, so, if you're starting to use glass or you're using stainless steel, it's going to be a higher deposit amount typically for most reuse programs. So we're making sustainability something that's not accessible for a good portion of the population. Sustainability shouldn't be something that only the wealthy folks can participate in, right? And then also, like, plastic shouldn't be the answer for the people who don't have a lot of money, who are already at risk populations. So that's my soapbox right there about.
Well, that transitions into a more positive spin on things. I want to look at this from a personal standpoint and then a corporate standpoint, since you do consulting and are also just involved in things. What is something that we could all be doing from a personal standpoint, just a small change that we could be making in our personal lives to be more sustainable?
Don't throw out food would be my big one, from my standpoint. That is the easiest thing. It will save you money. And typically, the average person leaving, like, picture yourself leaving a grocery store with your shopping cart, and you have 4 bags of groceries, reusable bags. They're cotton. I'm trying to paint you a good picture here.
Of course.
So you took your reusable bags, you have 4 of them, you're loading up your car, and you decide to leave 1 bag in the cart and drive away. That's essentially what we are doing as a people. We are wasting a quarter of our groceries. We're just throwing it out. So we're throwing away money too. So that for me, that's like low hanging fruit, and you're going to see a win right there. So there's so many different ways of doing that too. Just making sure that you have a good list. Don't get sucked into the music in the store. Wear headphones.
Yeah.
Don't get end caps. Like, just keep going.
Put blinders on. Get your purse.
Right. Create a use first bin in your refrigerator. Like, that is the easiest thing to do, and make sure that your almost, or like really needs to be used this week, all goes in that bin. So when you wake up at midnight and you're hungry, you're pulling from that bin versus stuff that would be perfectly fresh for weeks after.
Yeah.
That would be my one personal one on food, but that's because that's my, like, that's me. But like, from a recycling standpoint.
Well, also, I feel like the food aspect isn't talked a lot about, because of course everyone's thinking, oh, let me grab my reusable bags or cut down on my paper towel usage, but no one's like, I should actually eat my leftovers kind of thing.
Right. Like, and how many of us have like that dark corner of our refrigerator where, like,
you're like, stuff went weird in there and we're just
gonna
leave that.
I'm not gonna look at it. Like, just keep it back there. It's really important. Like, I would say, if you grow your own, you're not gonna throw it out, because you grew it. You have pride in that. It took time. It took energy to grow that thing, and you care about that. You're proud of it. If you know a farmer and you get your goods from a farmer, like, it's going to be harder for you to throw that out. A, you're probably paying a little bit more for it, so it's going to have more value. But B, you also can shake the hand of the farmer and know how much work they put into it. You can, like, you're not going to throw it out. So, like, if you're having a hard time caring about throwing away food, go meet somebody who grew it. You'll care about it at that point, right?
Or try growing something. My parents grew strawberries, and for their first year, they had 1 strawberry as a harvest. But let me tell you, we came in, we cherished that thing, we split it up. Everybody got a little tiny piece, but like, that was your little pride and joy kind of moment.
Oh yeah, and like, it's just, the food tastes better. Right? Like, the closer it grew to your home, the better it tastes. It's good stuff. I think, like, along with that, another thing, I know you said 1, but I'm gonna talk about the recycling side of it. But, like, know what is and isn't recyclable in your area. Most people don't know that. It changes based on the municipality. So look up your local recycling center. As restrictions start, like, lifting from the pandemic, like, call them up and go on a tour. Ask questions. Go see it. That's, like, you'll notice your buying habits then change, because you know what is and isn't recyclable. You know how it's being recycled. So I think those are the 2, like, low hanging fruit. Don't throw food away. A, and B, learn what's recyclable in your area.
Yeah, cut back on recycling.
Yep. Oh my God. Yes.
That's a whole other thing. But for corporate level, company wise, what is something, kind of keep it at the low hanging fruit level? What's an easy change companies can be making to be more sustainable in any regard?
Learn what's recyclable.
Yeah, same one. Good.
That would be the same one. most companies don't know how recycling works. And that's cool. Like, that's my job, right?
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. But call me.
Yeah. Your job is just to learn. Just go out and try.
Right, right. I think like because we get into this problem of, again, solving for the wrong problem. So we have challenges around labels at the recycling center. So we're solving for a problem without understanding that we're creating another massive problem. Um, that's my big challenge at this point, is saying like, you don't know, and that's okay. Just admit you don't know and call up a recycler. So that can be, even if you're not like a manufacturer creating things to be recycled, still understand what's recyclable and explain that to your staff. That's going to make a much more knowledgeable work base. The likelihood of your like your hauling fees for going through like hauling garbage and all that likely could go down as a business if you start educating your staff on what isn't recyclable, what's compostable, and moving away from single-use plastics in your office, moving toward reuse. It's pretty cool. You can save some serious money asking those questions, looking at your bins. Like, we do waste audits. So like literally jumping into dumpsters and sorting things out. It's a real sexy job. Uh, but understanding what you're throwing away is really important. So if you start looking, like, how many companies are still using Keurigs, like those K cups?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So like you jump in a dumpster and then you start pulling out K cups. You turn to the person who's, in charge of purchasing policy for your company and say, like, let's stop doing that. A, we save money. B, we're more sustainable. We save money again on hauling, and you can buy better coffee. Like, buy better coffee. There you go. That's your low hanging fruit for your company. Buy better coffee. Don't use K cups.
Beautiful. It's succinct, just better for the employees, better for the environment. Have a better start to your morning with better coffee.
Perfect. I love it. It's a great shirt too. Just buy better coffee, and then the recycling symbol. Perfect. I dig it.
That is making recycling sexy. It's just buy better coffee.
Just buy better coffee. Oh God. And then if you're better caffeinated, right? Like, you have better ideas, more sustainable ideas, and business opportunities are going to come to the forefront. Man, we've solved some serious problems.
Like, we're solving the right problem here.
Oh yeah, there you go. Perfect.
So people who are watching, if you are in the Boulder area and this happens to be your waste management recycling facility, you guys have a ton of resources. You have, like, you can Google anything and it'll tell you how to recycle it. You've got a really fun game that I thought I would be better at and I was not, but no shame, I'm learning. You can test your sorting knowledge. There are so many resources out there for you, which is great.
It's pretty cool. Like, everything from signs to, tips for cleaning your house in a zero waste manner. And like, even if you're not in the Boulder area, there's a ton of stuff to find on our website. And also, like, just sending me an email. Recycling's different everywhere, which means we can kind of ask any question from anybody from anywhere. Does that make sense? Like, down the road will be different from Wyoming, like, will be different from Buffalo, will be different from Italy, but you can still call and ask those questions because we have that vast amount of knowledge to pull from. So yeah, like, don't be strangers, look at our website and reach out.
Don't be strangers and buy better coffee, guys. That's the message we want to leave you with today.
Yep. Yeah. And probably, like, also play the Magic School Bus theme song before your presentations. Just that's side note.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we have given the people a lot to think about today, and thank you so much for sitting down with us. I knew you would be just as wonderful as you were. Very informative, very fun.
Oh, thanks. Well, thanks for having me. Could talk for hours about this. So I appreciate the opportunity.
And to all of our L&L people, feel free to go check out Kate, ask her questions, play a recycling game, and enjoy a good cup of coffee. And we will see you all in our next video.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and make sure to click the subscribe button at the top of the screen. You can see more videos from this playlist by clicking the video on the right or click the video on the left to see all of our other videos.